All right, class, you are about to see a sample debate from start to finish that includes all of the affirmative and negative speeches, the constructive speeches, rebuttal summaries, as well as cross-examination. So I will be playing both debaters in a round, and I think that by the end you'll get a sense of how all this flows together. I encourage you to follow along with the complete written debate that I provided for you. It will also be shown on the screen as I go throughout the debate. Here we go. A criminal is a criminal is a criminal. Dividing our justice system by age is based on repressive notions of age. Because of this, I stand in firm affirmation of the resolution. Violent juvenile criminals ought to be treated as adults in the criminal justice system. Observation 1, definitions. Violent, acting in a manner rooted in severe negative emotions. Juvenile, not fully grown. Criminal justice system, the entire path of convicted criminals from arrest to courtroom to punishment. Observation 2, value and criterion. The supreme value for this debate is that of justice. Because justice systems are supposed to be centered upon principles of justice, as stated by Justice John Derrida in American Justice Journal, May 2013, justice is the perfect value for deciding whether or not a principle should be accepted by the justice system. The criterion for measuring justice should be that of utilitarianism. Whichever side of the debate provides the greatest level of justice for the most members should take today's round. I shall further uphold this value and criterion throughout my contentions. Contention 1. The juvenile criminal justice system denies important rights to individuals. Individuals that enter the juvenile criminal justice system in the United States are often denied important rights, including right to trial by jury, as well as the right to be judged by their peers. These rights enumerated in the Constitution as rights bestowed to the people of the United States, not just those of minority age or those of voting citizens, but the people, are denied to minors within the juvenile justice system. Failing to extend these rights to all people of the United States not only fails to uphold a principle of equality before the law, but it denies the words of the founders of the nation. If we are to accept that a young individual is still a person, then we must accept that said young individual has the right to be treated as an adult within our criminal justice system. According to the reporter Chanel Lee in How Stuff Works, March 20, 2019, she stated, under the law, children in the United States are fully formed human beings with the same basic constitutional rights that adults enjoy. Contention 2. A just egalitarian society would view all individuals equally in a justice system. Clearly, if a justice system is trying to remain just to the juveniles, the core of this topic, it will seek to remove the benign classification from the juveniles that the minors currently receive. This treatment in the end only perpetuates harmful stereotypes of juveniles as being less than. To that end, the 5th and 14th Amendments, which forbid the federal and state governments respectively from denying citizens the equal protection of the law, clearly demonstrate a constitutional basis for including juvenile offenders in the adult system. The adult system better protects the rights because it doesn't pretend to be on the side of the criminal. Only such an environment is truly equitable and truly just. It also serves as a deterrent. A lot of these juveniles that have been through the system a lot, when they get arrested, their attitude is, nothing's going to happen to me, I'm a juvenile, according to the former Ninth Circuit State Attorney Jeff Ashton on NPR August 15, 2017. I'm now open for cross-examination. All right, thank you. I just have a few questions for you. My first question, would you consider it justice if a 5-year-old had to serve time with hardened criminals? I believe that if a 5-year-old has committed a heinous enough crime, then yes, that would be appropriate. All right, thank you. My next question. In your contention 1, you state that constitutionally, children have the same rights as adults. Did you offer any research stating that children should have the same rights removed as adults when committing a crime? I didn't offer any of that research, but if that's a point that you want to argue, you can feel free to bring it up in your speech. All right, last question here. In your contention 2, you state juveniles have a flippant attitude because they get off easy. Do you list any rates of recidivism by juvenile offenders in the current system? No, I did not, but I can address that in one of my later speeches. We stopped expecting young people to be productive members of the society and began to think of them as gullible consumers. We defined maturity primarily in terms of being permitted adult vices, and then were surprised when teenagers drank, smoked, and had promiscuous sex. Because I believe eliminating the juvenile justice system for violent offenders would make violence yet another adult vice that defines maturity, I stand in firm opposition to the resolution. Violent juvenile criminals ought to be treated as adults in the criminal justice system. Observation 1, definitions. I accept the affirmative's definition, reminding the audience specifically of the definition of juvenile, which is not fully grown. Observation 2, value and criterion. For today's debate, the supreme value should be that of maximum adherence to the law. Per the Judicial Learning Center, April 2019, since the aim of a justice system is to ensure that laws are followed, when evaluating justice systems, we should measure worth by adherence to the law. The criterion should be comparative advantage. Whichever side of the debate provides the most advantages for adherence to the law should take the round. I shall further uphold this value throughout my contentions. Contention 1. As stated by the United Nations Security Council, September 30, 2013, the aim of the justice system should be to ensure that laws are followed to the utmost extent. The justice system, except at extremely high levels, does not exist to determine what justice is or what the law should be, but rather to enforce those laws made by the legislative system. The courts and penal system instead exist to ensure that these laws are always carried out in the same way that were intended to be, and to ensure that the laws are violated as rarely as possible. Contention 2. According to lawyer Thomas Hine, American Law Journal, May 2014, making vices be signs of maturity, as the resolution does, merely entices young people into sin. By recognizing violence as yet another sin that defines being an adult, it is one more sin that young people will be encouraged to participate in when they wish to be adults. Clearly, this undermines the justice system's goal of minimizing violations of the law. Now, on to my opponent's case. In the affirmative's contention 1, he asserted the juvenile criminal justice system denies important rights to individuals, that is, the juvenile offenders, by limiting their due process. However, per the affirmative's own definition, because juveniles are not fully grown, the justice system determined through over the years and through multiple case law that juveniles should not be treated as rigorously as adults. According to the Juvenile Law Center, March 2019, rather than a strictly punitive system, the juvenile justice system seeks to reform young people to prevent driving them to a hardened life of adult crime. In the affirmative's contention 2, he asserted a just society would view all individuals equally. This is rather dystopian and welcomes the possibility of a 5-year-old boy who accidentally shoots a parent or a 4-year-old girl that accidentally burns down her neighbor's house to be incarcerated with adult offenders. As reported by Carmen Doherty, Police Policy Director, New York Times, December 14, 2015, young offenders are more likely to succeed on a personal level if they receive comprehensive services that support positive youth development. The system is different because we as a society have decided that juveniles are different than adults in our society. I'm now open for cross-examination.
All right, thank you. Just a few questions for you as well. First, at what age do you believe humans know the difference between right and wrong?
I'd say that we learn different aspects of right and wrong throughout our life, but we start learning right and wrong as children.
Okay, for my next question, you stated in your contention 1 the aim should be to follow laws. I would agree. But don't we have control over what laws exist in the first place?
We do, but I would also argue that we've always tried to keep the age of a perpetrator in mind when we make those laws.
All right, thank you. My last question. If an adult accidentally shoots another adult, are they always put away in prison?
Well, they're not always put away in prison, but I would argue that there's always some sort of penalty or consequence to killing another human.
In the negative contention 1, he stated the aim of the justice system is to ensure laws are followed. While I agree, we are the ones that make the laws. According to the Department of Justice, September 2019, the Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act is a law that specifically recognizes youth offenders should be treated differently. Therefore, as the affirmative, I'm meeting the negative standards. In the negative contention 2, the negative implies that by taking a harder stance on juvenile offenders, I will entice them to become criminals and quote sin. However, according to the National Institute for Justice, a 2010 study indicates that deterrent practices when young, known as scared straight, prevent kids from becoming adult offenders. Now to rebuild my case. In my contention 1, I talked about how the current juvenile justice system actually denies rights by treating children differently under the Constitution. In a key case, Justice Blackmun wrote for the 1976 Planned Parenthood of Central Missouri versus Danforth case the majority opinion, stating that constitutional rights do not mature and come into being magically only when one attains the state-defined age of majority. In my contention 2, I asserted that a just society would view all individuals equally. Let's look to Texas. The Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, June 2019, indicates that a 17-year-old that murders someone is the same as an 18-year-old that murders someone. Just because we view someone as a child does not mean that the consequences of their actions do not hold the same weight of an adult criminal. In my last speech, I will offer some reasons why you should vote for the affirmative. Thank you.
In my contention 1, I asserted that the goal of our justice system is to uphold law. We specifically have laws in place that make a clear distinction between how adult criminals should be treated versus how we treat children who are criminals. As we are reminded by New York courts on their webpage, Access December 2017, a juvenile delinquent is a child over 7, but under 18 years of age, who commits an act that would be a crime if it had been committed by an adult. In my contention 2, I argued if we started treating violent crime by children as an adult, taboo action, we would actually make it more desirable for children to commit. Dr. Carl E. Pickert in Psychology Today, December 6, 2009, stated, "Rebellion is primarily a process through which the young person rejects the old child identity that he or she now wants to shed to clear the way for more grown-up redefinition ahead. Rebellion at this age proclaims, I refuse to be defined and treated as a child anymore." Now, he knows how he doesn't want to be defined, but he has yet to discover and establish how he does want to be defined. If we set up that being bad when you were young is the same as being bad as an adult, it provides one more avenue for children to act out. I want to offer the following 3 reasons why you will feel comfortable voting for the negative in today's round. Voter 1, remember my value of upholding law. By rejecting the affirmative, you cast a vote for the laws we currently have in every state that maintain that children are not adults, even if they commit crimes we would consider violent. The affirmative case does not just call for a dramatic shift in how we engage with children, it also calls for a dramatic restructuring of laws adults enacted to protect these children. Voter 2, by upholding laws, we maintain a just society. This is not to say that laws should never be questioned, but the point of the legal system is to uphold the laws we agree on. Think about how different laws are from state to state across multiple arenas. Yet, the one area of law agreed on by all states is that we should not treat children as legal peers to adults. Voter 3, we do not want to communicate to children their actions are equal to adult actions. If children start being raised that they can commit actions that get them an adult level of attention, this can be a new avenue of rebellion, as we have seen with alcohol use, drug abuse, and sexuality. Thank you.
I want to offer the following 3 reasons why you will feel comfortable voting for the affirmative in today's round. Voter 1, remember my value of justice. If we truly want to say that we have a just system, then we need the consequences of illegal actions to be consistent. If a child, knowing the difference between right and wrong, killed my husband or my daughters, I would expect them to have to pay the penalty for that crime. Voter 2, if we treat children differently for the crimes they commit, we actually deny individual rights. If we agree that the Constitution and law covers all citizens of the United States, including children, then we have to agree that violation of these rights should be treated equally. Voter 3, if we are going to say we are egalitarian, then that implies equality before our legal standards. If a child is capable of committing a violent crime, then we have to meet that capability with accountability and show all our citizens that justice is truly blind. Thank you. All right, so that is a sample debate round from start to finish. You'll notice that if you go back that the time parameters were met. The first speech was 2.5 minutes, followed by a minute of cross-examination by the negative. Then the negative constructive was 3 minutes, followed by a minute of cross-examination from the affirmative. Then the affirmative gave their rebuttal speech for 1.5 minutes. The negative then gave their rebuttal summary speech for 2 minutes, and then the affirmative gave their last speech, their summary, for 1 minute. So that's what your debates will ultimately end up looking like when we get to that point, although you won't have to do the costume changes that I was doing to make it happen. But anyway, go back through, watch the video again, follow along, and you'll see how all of these pieces of the puzzle that we've been learning in the past weeks all fit together to produce a finished and formalized debate.